Rob Zanotti in Bern, Switzerland. And you're listening to WRMI, Radio Miami International, Okeechobee, Florida, USA. Send us your comments and reception reports to info@wrmi.net or by regular mail to WRMI, Post Office Box 526852, Miami, Florida, 33152, USA.
In that moment, I knew that this was the sign that God was sending me. That you are not alone. You are not an orphan. You are my daughter. And that's when I knew that God is real and that He is with me.
Hello, friend. Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. I'm Ron Harris. On today's Mission Compass, we want to update you on what Galcom is doing around the world and also connect with a ministry partner who, like Galcom, is making waves. Where do you fit in the Great Commission? Well, keep listening. We may have an answer for you. And here's your host, Galcom's Tim Whitehead.
Well, thank you, Ron. We got a great show for you today. Before we get to Stan Jeter, Bonnie Sala, and our special guest, Brant Watley, a quick update of what's been going on here with Galcom. Friend of the program, friend of the ministry, volunteer extraordinaire, Ron Hunick joins us, fresh back from a trip to Canada's North. Ron, thanks for giving us some of your time.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tim. Excited to be here. I listen to the podcast all the time, and it's on my Spotify list to listen to an update every week, so it's good to be here.
Great plug. Thank you for doing that. Friends, yeah, if you ever miss a program, don't worry. Visit our website or subscribe to us, Spotify, iTunes, whatever you like to listen to it, to hear what's going on with Galcom and how you can get involved in missions. So, Rob, this actually fits both. You're a technician, educationally. You're training to be a pilot. And you've given all of these gifts and abilities, skills, education to serve God by partnering with us, putting in radio stations. So tell us about your trip to Cat Lake.
So Dan Hatfield is leading the charge on that. He's been doing it for many, many years. I've been having many conversations with him over the years, and we've been trying to connect so I could join him on one of these trips. And finally, we were able to get this one organized, and we went to Cat Lake around December there, and we were able to put a temporary station in. It's temporary because they want to put a tower up and everything else at some point, but Dan had been working hard to get this station in ahead of time, and you know, flying in is obviously a big issue when you're flying to these areas, and you want to make sure you can get in. So we were trying to get in with the weather, so we were able to schedule it. We met up in Winnipeg, and we were able to fly out the next morning. Thank God, because it was touch and go there a little bit. The weather wasn't great, but it was good enough to go in, so we were able to get in and put in a temporary radio station so that they can at least be operating over the winter as well. So we'll probably be going back there in the summer. At some point, somebody will be going back to do the permanent solution.
You mentioned flying in a lot of the First Nations territories that we're working with Dan Hatfield, his ministry, Nations One for Christ, and all of the radio stations are going in partnership with the Native Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, the NEFC, so in partnership with their churches and their church planners and their missionary pastors. These are isolated communities. What was the sense you got there when you landed and looked around and met some of the people? What's the dynamic there?
Regretfully, we didn't have a chance to do too much interaction with the people because we did get in late. We were hoping to come in the night before and we would have had a little bit more time to interact, but we flew in the morning, we landed, we had two local missionaries there meet us at the airport, bring us over to the church, and we dove right in and no lunch and no break. We had to get going, but it was very exciting to see them. We had a number of people stop by as we were outside working, putting up the satellite dish, and there was a couple of the local people that stopped, and they were very excited to see us and gave us the thumbs up and let us know that they were excited to see the radio station going up. But yes, the communities are definitely isolated. And, you know, when we were on top of the church building, we could look around and basically see from one end of the town to the other. There's no way else to get to these places other than to fly in. So it's very much reliant on, you know, Dan with his airplane and flying into these places to be able to serve them with the radio, and that's where the satellite dishes come in as well too, right? Because they are so isolated, they actually need the satellite feed for them to work properly. So we hooked up the satellite link, and then we were able to get the radio transmitter up and running and put the antenna on the inside of the church building, and it was up and running when we left, and we could hear the programming, and it was nothing more exciting than to have the people come in, turn on the radios in their trucks, and hearing the radio transmission over the air. That's always the best part of the trip.
Stories have the power to save our life, not only eternally, but physically. Galcom International presents Stories of the Great Commission.
One woman was trying to commit suicide. The husband had run away from her, and family members were not supporting her. So she decided to commit suicide. And they stood on a chair to put the rope around her neck. The tuned radio was on. This same pastor was preaching on the radio station. When she heard the message that was preached, that woman took away the rope from her neck and walked to the radio station. She was cancelled. She's now a very strong Christian.
Discover why your story matters and how you can help fulfill the Great Commission right where you are. Learn more at galcom.org, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Galcom International. Make waves.
Well, it is time once again for Who Wants to Be a Missionary, with our very good friend from the Global News Alliance, Stan Jeter. Stan, welcome back to the program.
Jim, it's always great to be with you. Thank you.
Well, before we get to the next tip on how to be a Christian media missionary using our cell phones, you've got another story to encourage us along in our faith. There's like one of our listeners listening that did this story. So where's our story from? What are we learning this week?
This is a really moving story. I was very touched by it. It shows how a small gift for a child in a far country can change a life. And so it's a story of a young girl in Ukraine whose father died. Her mother couldn't cope with the loss of her husband. She sort of went off the deep end. So the oldest daughter, who was only, I think, 5 or 6, tried to hold the family together. And now as an adult, Elizabeth recalls those traumatic things. Here's her story.
I kind of had to step up and be the head of the household at a very young age, 5 or 6 years old, taking care of my sister, looking after my grandparents, going from cottage to cottage and begging for food because I was too young to work at that time. I decided that Tanya and I would run away in search of a new life. We got on the bus and we left.